I hope that you are good with terrible camera angles and quality because I am filming this in a very dark room while my children are asleep. Because I am actually working on a very, very big project right now and realize I don't have a video for this Saturday. And I have already done this so many times, like just skipping a Saturday. I don't want to keep doing that. Like, I really want to push myself to have a video out every single Saturday. So I'm going to tell you a story, a really messed up story. There's going to be a trigger warning right after the introduction. You're welcome. Okay, bye.
The following story is about sexual assault and contains themes of molestation and incest. Viewer discretion is advised.
I decided to switch locations to be more comfy. Because, yeah, laying down in that bed, I got a crick in my neck. I'm also genuinely not going to edit this one. Like, I don't want to sit through this twice. Like, I'm already kind of stepping out of my comfort zone by sharing this story. So, yeah, I'm not sitting through and editing it. It's just going to be this really long video. Me stumbling over my words, you're just going to have to deal with it. But yeah, let's just jump right into it, I guess. I don't want to do this. But I need to, because I've been thinking about it a lot, which I'll get into later on, because without the context, it would just be rambling on with no understanding of my thought process right now. I'm literally just rambling on anyway. Anyway, when I was 15 years old, I had an older cousin, and he and I were very close. I remember as, like, a younger kid, like, so before 15, he and his family, they came and hung out for a while. They were around for my birthday, and he and I had stayed up late one night. We were playing video games and watching Robot Chicken, and he told me I was his favorite cousin. Don't tell anybody else. You're my favorite cousin. Like, that kind of thing. And I felt so honored. Because, like, the cousins that I grew up with, I was kind of always the odd one out. The one that got picked on the most. And the one that just wasn't really understood. The one that was just kind of hated overall. And I don't think any of them remember it being that way. A lot of them, I mean, they all hate me now anyway, but I think a lot of them thought that our falling out happened in our adulthood, but I never really felt close to most of my family. So it was nothing new to me. So to have somebody tell me that I was their favorite felt unbelievably special. And then he decided to move out here when he was an adult, like 19, something around there, and I was 15. And we were so excited, and my family was, like, getting ready, and he was going to have to stay with us for a while, and so, we were planning on him using the, second bed off of my bed, because my bed at the time was like a trundle bed, so it had the one that you could pull out. We were going to let him use that little pull out one, and, like, everybody was super excited. And I remember driving out with the family to go and pick him up and bring him back down. Like, we were all really happy. And I remember everything being great. I remember him stealing DMT from one of our aunts and smoking it with me, which, sorry family if this is you watching this, because I definitely never told anybody about that. But, like, he was the cooler older cousin, and he was like, let's do this, and I was like, okay, cool. And then the night before Easter, suggested that we grab as many blankets and pillows as we could and set them up in the treehouse, like build walls and stuff in the treehouse and just hotbox it. And I was like, dope, I love that idea. Let's get high. So we set up our fort, we stayed out there, and we just smoked weed and talked. I talked to him about boys, because I was texting one of them, and I was arguing with my boyfriend at the time. And so he was just like, you know, who you texting? Like, it was normal conversation, and I didn't really think anything of it, because, you know, you're cousins. You just talk about things like that. Like, at least me and my cousins always have. So I was just like, oh, cool. And now I have a guy cousin, so he can tell me what kind of shit guys are always pulling, games and shit. And so we talked about it for a while, and we already told the family that we were going to be sleeping out there, because I was 15. Like, my mama would have whooped my ass if I came in smelling like a whole pound of weed, high as fuck. Like, I would have died. I would have died, and then she would have brought me back to life just so she could kill me again. That is how mad she would be. So we stayed out there. We fell asleep. And then I woke up, and none of it really registered for a minute. I heard sounds that that sounded like, you know, kind of like squishing sounds. And I felt pain. And I felt and heard my cousin, like, his breath on the back of my neck. And it was very, like, heavy breathing. And as I woke up more and started to realize what was happening, I realized that that wet sound, like the squishing sound, was, I don't know what I can and can't say on YouTube. This is definitely like a 18 and up video, but like, I don't know if there's still rules on YouTube, so like, my area, I don't know if that's allowed to say. I don't think any of this is allowed to be on YouTube. I don't know. But, yeah, I started to register that that was the sound I was hearing, and that the pain was, like, on the sides of my, insides, from, like, the jagged edges on his fingernails and stuff. And unfortunately, that was the day that I realized that, in traumatic situations, my first instinct is to freeze. I am not a flight, and I am not a fight. I am a freeze. Just lay there. Like, I had to force myself out. Like, it went on so much longer than it needed to, because I had to forcibly push myself up, and that took like 20 minutes to just attempt to do. And then once I sat up, I froze again, and I was still stuck there for a minute until he asked what was happening, and I was like, oh, I'm cold, I'm gonna go inside. And I went inside, and he followed, and again, he was on the mattress right next to mine when we got into the house, so I was still in very close proximity with him for the rest of the night, and I don't remember much after that except for crying myself to sleep, and I don't know how long that took. I just know that I was like trying to keep it as quiet as possible because I didn't want to like draw more attention to myself, and I didn't want to make it known that like I definitely knew what happened, I guess is the best way to word it. And so Easter was ruined, needlessly, like, needless to say. Cops showed up, and I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. I felt very abandoned by my entire family in this moment. A lot of people were asking for his side and trying to figure out what happened. I had told my uncle, and he drove up to the police station and told them they could either come do their job or he'll bring the body to them, basically. And when the cops showed up, my mother and I were at the end of our driveway, like the end closest to the house, not the end closest to the street. But these cops are walking up, and she's screaming at me, demanding to know what happened, and I am crying and freaking out. And then cops showed up. They took me into their car, took a statement. One of them went into the house to grab him. Everything happened in a really big blur. I got driven to the hospital. I had to hand over my pajama bottoms, because I was wearing a hoodie and like these fuzzy bright blue pajama bottoms that had like monkeys and moons all over them. They were very cute. I loved my fashion back then, because it was really just a whatever you want kind of thing. Those were like my favorite pair of pants. And they came in and said, like, you know, whatever you're comfortable with us doing, we can do. Are you okay with this exam? And I was like, yeah. And it was the external exam, and she just kind of looked at it, and she asked if I was comfortable with an internal exam, and I told her I wasn't sure if I was, because, like, I had never even had sex at this point, and I didn't really want anything being shoved up there. Like, I didn't do any shoving of anything myself. I was never sexually active with my boyfriend at the time. Like, I didn't want to shove anything up there. And she was like, okay, well, we definitely don't have to. And she was like, I'm gonna be very, like, straightforward and upfront with you. From what I can see, just on the outside, there is very visible tearing from what looks like fingernails. And so she swapped around, collected all of the evidence that she could from what she had available to her. And then the cops came in while my mom was in the room, who was just yelling at me at the top of the driveway. So, like, they knew it wasn't the best situation, but they asked me in front of her if I wanted any of the evidence to be used in court. And because I already felt like I was in so much trouble, I told them no. And so, like, things moved on, life went on. He pled guilty, served a little bit of time, like, you know, the slap on the wrist amount of time that anybody in these situations ends up serving. And he had to move back into the house that we were staying in, so my mother and I had to move out. And that was when I met the narcissist, and this was like all within months of happening with each other, because I still haven't had, like, at that point still hadn't had my 16th birthday. Like, I was still 15. But we moved in there. I met my narcissistic ex, and so like everything was still super, super fresh. And then a bunch of other stuff happened. I don't really know what happened to him, but we moved back into the old house. My mom and her friend had a falling out, so we had to move out again. And when we moved back into the house, like, a lot of things were very triggering. Like, prime example, I'm sitting in this bathroom right now, but that Easter, I remember sitting up against this door with it locked, just like that, like, sitting like this, with my head in my knees, and he was on the other side of the door, knocking, begging me to not tell anybody. I remember getting in the shower that night and scrubbing my skin until the water was cold and I was bleeding from the bar of soap because I was trying to wash away the feeling I had, like the feeling of just absolute disgust, but I couldn't wash it away because he was related to me, so it was in my blood. And then when we moved back in, his fiance was living in the room that my bed is currently in. And she invited me into the room one day to look me in my face and tell me that I must have imagined everything because of how high I was, and she knows him, so she knows that he would never do anything like that, and I'm just a filthy liar. And she doesn't know why, if I was just mad at him or what, but these things have consequences and I needed to learn and figure that out. And then time went on, and I got more serious with my then boyfriend, now narcissistic ex, and I was really trying to move past it. I was cutting all the time and just really, really hating myself. And then I was hanging out with the narcissist one day, and he decided to try and put his fingers there, and I froze, and I started crying, and then he just got mad and pushed me away from him and started screaming in my face about it, about how I'm not him and you don't fucking need to feel that way when it's me, blah blah blah. And I was just like, dude, it's fucking PTSD, it's fucking trauma. It wasn't a fucking controllable reaction. Like, I was dealing with the fact that I felt like my entire family abandoned me on top of what he did. Like, I carried this guilt the entire time after it happened, up until my grandpa's death, that I said anything because all my grandpa wanted was one of his grandsons, any of his grandsons, all of his grandsons, and he finally got one. And then this happened. And so I carried this, like, insane amount of guilt that, like, I somehow took away his grandson. And then I was told that my preferences in the bedroom because of my trauma were now a problem, and it just kept piling on. And then my grandpa passed, and planning his funeral, I had to deal with that cousin again. he showed up a few times. I had to keep my children as far away from him as possible because no. But I still had to go over to my grandma's to help make arrangements. Like, I was working on a video for my grandpa's memorial services and stuff, and I had to go and do that stuff, and he was there, the fiance was there, and I don't remember everything that happened, but I know that they were not there for a very long time, and the reason that was given to my grandma that I just happened to overhear from my aunt, the cousin's mom, was that the fiance just didn't feel safe with me around. So that's fun. That's super fun. And in the past few years, my grandma and one of my aunts and my cousin, my small, young cousin, go and visit him. And this year it's gonna be those three and my other aunt. They're gonna go visit him. And, like, not just him, like, his brothers and his parents, too, but it's a lot. And I understand that it's hard to just write off family. And, like, I have my own faith, and I am working on the forgiveness aspect of it for my own sanity and stuff, and that's why I decided to tell this story now, because I want to move past it, and part of it is getting it off my chest, but it's so hard because I have so much rage over the fact that they would bring another female cousin around him ever. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my grandma, I love my family, and I don't blame my grandma because it's not her choice. But, like, it scares me. It fucking scares me. And it pisses me off that it's every year that they go and spend with him. They don't spend. I have a kid that was born on Christmas. And I think it's just that one final thing to show me, like, if there was a side to pick on this, the predator or the victim, pick the predator. So much so that it's going to extend for the entirety. Don't spend a single holiday with the victim and her kids. Just him and his kids. Bring another cousin around a dangerous individual. And people that are just gonna say that he did nothing wrong and that it was all made up because you got too high. Like, how much laced marijuana did you have to smoke to assume that all of it just causes auditory, freaking visual and tactile hallucinations? Like, I'm sorry, but whatever you were smoking was not weed if that was what was happening to you. But yeah, this is something that's been very hard to let go of, to move past, to accept. But I want to get to that point. Because it's been almost 10 years of holding on to all of that. And that's fucking painful.